Welcome to Texas Torque Ridge Podcast. This is the one and only Shane Bedingfield. I'd like to thank you guys for listening in and to say that we have rubbed people wrong early is like a major understatement. I hinted something about DDP yoga, and it's sort of running wild a little bit. Some of the guys up in New York are noticing it because I'm a promotion machine. And, be honest with you, they should have me sitting over there in the PR center of the WWE Titan Towers, because I do this exactly the way I got taught by one of the few Jewish people / promoters to come into Amarillo, Texas. The first guy to run Snoop Dogg through that part of the country, where basically it's a Bible Belt, and we rubbed people wrong. For 1 year's time, we ran concerts, run some of the biggest name acts through that town. We broke rules when we did it. We had black kids fly our women's restrooms. We did everything that the WWE should be doing right now to win the pay-per-view battle, but aren't. We played by our own set of rules. We rubbed the establishment wrong. I jumped fence because I have a reputation of I will work for whoever pays the most. That's the way it is. And so basically, I rubbed some people wrong, and you know what I gotta say? Good. Because when it comes right down to it, we could get into an argument left and right, and when it comes down to it, they won't book anything. And the only thing they're going to do is run in their hot air because they're Jerry Falwells. There's Jerry Falwells all over the South in the wrestling business. And basically, I got bigger fish to fry. I can promote myself. That's the whole reason why I'm doing this, because I'm doing it under my own umbrella. So, fine. Be jealous. Be mad that you didn't think of it yourself. And just leave it alone. Because there's no way, when it comes right down to it, whenever I said, okay, there's an Italian guy down in, I believe he's in Philadelphia, but he sometimes resides down in Florida. I said, okay, the blonde hair versus the Italian guy, that's always got over throughout the years. Let's book something. Then it's like, he goes through this whole deal where I should mark out for him and basically pay my way down. No, it don't work that way. And he was from that part of there where you almost had to literally perform oral sex to get something booked. No, that's stupid. That's bad business. That's bad for business, period. So next thing you know, you have a huge ass-kissing session that just has nothing to do with the wrestling business. It's bad, and no. And it's not believable. So no. That's the biggest thing that's wrong with the indies right now, is they won't bring people in who will come across with a believable storyline and get it over. And then on top of that, you got promoters who do not know how to book and promote and fill the house to bring people in on a deal like that. So no. So, okay, I went off on a tangent there. And, by the way, I send my condolence to the Panther fans because this week is the last week. So enjoy watching Cam Newton for the last time and for this year. And because the Seattle Seahawks are going to run them over. And today's topic is basically, it's going to tie in a bunch together. So it's the whole Nattie, Natalya Neidhart versus Charlotte angle that the WWE is either having a brain fart over, or they don't think their numbers are down and they want to continue losing the pay-per-view war, or whatever their thinking is. And basically tying Nattie versus Charlotte to the Ronda Rousey when she was on fire / Danica Patrick feminist movement, which is the second round of the feminist movement. So we got quite a bit to talk about here. So, okay, they did Nattie versus Charlotte in NXT. It got over. It may have got over too well. This is where my whole argument where NXT may be bad for the business in the long run, because they experiment there, and the way how the whole NXT thing's done anyway, because of the whole press release deal, which was yesterday's shows, it's sort of bad for the business. Okay, they do Nattie versus Charlotte. It gets over. Then they just killed it right there. Okay, I'm going to remind you, those are Natalya Neidhart's from a wrestling family, Charlotte's from a wrestling family. Right there's the first angle. So you got basically, which has got done a lot of Texas, you got prime examples of Chris Youngblood versus Kerry Von Erich. Those were two wrestling families that got over, and it got over back in the day real well. That's just one example. Okay, the other deal on that is you got, on Nattie versus Charlotte, you have leg versus leg, the sharpshooter versus the figure four. And the great thing about working the leg, because I worked the leg myself, is with two people that know what they're doing, you can really stretch for time. And especially if you got two people who don't have egos about it and have got where they know each other real well, they know how to play off each other, you have an angle that will never end. And I mean, so there's another take. Okay, that's number 2. Number 3, you have Canada versus America again, which is basically what Bret Hart did with Shawn Michaels. You could relight that up all again. And now I want to remind you, that was the angle that got the ball rolling, that got the business to pick up again. That was the started angle with all the Harts versus Shawn, Canada versus America. I don't want to lose in Canada angle because I'm from Canada. I'm a hero. Well, that will relight all that back up. Okay, there's 3. Number 4, you have, feeding off of that last point I made, you have a female version of possibly working a work shoot or shoot work, female version of the Montreal Screwjob, which the business needs right now. Now, we can sit here and argue work shoot forever on that whole angle. And we'll never know. I hope Vince has it on his will that they will finally disclose whenever he dies on if that was a work or not. Maybe when they read his will, he'll get up and say, oh, by the way, guys, I had everybody out duped. It was the biggest work ever, and you guys all bit. Even the guys in the locker room bit. Ravishing Rick Rude bit. Everybody bit on it. Rick Rude was stupid. He left the company and went over, which actually was not a stupid move. That was one of the best played out moves ever that Rick Rude did. Because Rick Rude and that whole mix got shown on 2 different TVs at the same time, basically at the same time of night. So he was a genius on that part. Nobody hardly ever talks about that. Only a handful of people caught that. So, yep, you heard it here. You heard it here, right here. You got to wake up awful early in the morning to get ahead of me. So, okay, there's the fourth angle. Okay, number 5. Okay, when Ronda Rousey was in the midst of her big run, how come weren't they not running Nattie versus Charlotte? You got a big feminist movement going throughout the country. Everybody's watching TV because of the women. Ronda Rousey's making it popular to be a woman again. Why not run the 2 best workers you got on the roster and running them in every arena, on every pay-per-view, on every Raw, and every SmackDown to play along with that? That was a major, major, major drop ball by the WWE. It's like they got scared of the deal, which is a common denominator a lot with the WWE. You see it in a lot of the stuff they do. Like they come across something accidentally that could be really good for the business, then they pull back. It's like what the hell, It's back to the whole gladiator thing. Had one of the best workers that ever come across the roster, and then they set on him. The whole Mark Henry deal, which makes absolutely no sense. The world's strongest job guy. And I'm going to protect Mark Henry a little bit just because he's from Texas. And he's a Texas worker, and he's from Houston. And I don't grasp their thinking on that. But that's a whole completely different subject. And then number 5 on the whole Nattie versus Charlotte deal is, okay, not only do you have Ronda Rousey, you have Danica Patrick in NASCAR. Well, hello, NASCAR and wrestling fans are the same demographic. Me and a guy from Pennsylvania who's down in North Carolina, who's from the wrestling business, who drives race cars now, Mike Seneca, we talk about it on the phone. And we talked about how the crossover's there. There was a show called Madhouse where one of the drivers came across the TV and said on the History Channel, we are wrestling with cars. There was better fights there. They put on better fights in the pits than some of the matches that go on in North Carolina. And I'm saying that's a shoot, that's a shoot, that's a shoot. You heard it here. That shows you the level of wrestling that independent wrestling is at in places in some parts of the state of North Carolina. So, with that being said, you got between the Danica Patrick, Ronda Rousey, and now Holly Holm, depending on how much the UFC gets behind Holly Holm. You got leg versus leg, Canada versus America. You still got all the stuff brewing behind the screw job, which I know for a fact I keep that brewing myself, because that's some of the best interviews in and out, away from the business that there is, talking about all the build-up stuff that Jim Cornette did about the Montreal screw job, X-Pac, George Animal Steel, Bruce Pritchard, and everybody else who's done an interview on that. That's almost like the plane ride from hell. Only real wrestling fans know about the plane ride from hell, and everything's there for the perfect storm. They should be doing Flair versus Steamboat with Nattie versus Charlotte, literally in every city. And every once in a while, take some breaks in between, throw some new meat in there. And now supposedly Paige is hurt, so now they're going to be looking for somebody else to work. Now Nikki's gone. Nikki's the only one I've ever heard that's got hurt with their own damn move, own damn finishing move. So it makes you wonder what's going on down in Orlando. So, because the whole deal on wrestling, and this is how come I got so much respect for Dory Funk Jr. Dory Funk Jr., if you compared his career besides Terry Funk, which I love them both, we're all West Texas boys, but Dory didn't do all the crazy stuff Terry did to get over. Now, I've seen on some independent shots where Dory did the whole flamethrowing deal, and that's cool. And that's it's awesome. And everybody that's a heel, wanted to steal from the original Sheik, and that's how come Sabu is so over with so many of the guys because of it's mainly his bloodline. That's how come he's so over. And, everything's there for the Storm. And it's like WWE, much like the Brock Lesnar deal, is sort of afraid to drop the hammer. Now, Brock sort of fits in that category too because he's such an entity. He brought his own, brings his own sponsors actually to the WWE with Jimmy John's. And, WWE would have used Brock right. They could have turned wrestling 100% legit again. And I've talked about that so many times, I'm blue in the face. And it comes, which is almost a whole different show. But my whole psychology on that was Triple H gets into the game of, and I'm putting this nicely, of who's the most endowed with Dana White. Because Vince will play the game of who's most endowed with anybody. And, yep, you heard it here. So what you have there is, if Triple H would have cornered Vince and say, okay, you got 3 to 5 weeks to book a fight, Brock's ready, and then the whole timing of the deal, catching a heavyweight champ that is basically not ready to fight a guy like Brock, you have Brock with the WWE belt and the UFC belt. That's basically it, which is a whole completely different show. So, back to the Nattie versus Charlotte deal, and then you got the deal where Nattie's the captain of one heel faction, and then you got Charlotte, the captain of a babyface faction, and then you got all the 6-man and 8-man, 8-woman matches that you can do with that. Then you got all the promos. You got, it's wrestling's version of the perfect storm. Now, the WWE was not ready yet to put the women on top of the show, or they don't know how to do it, or they're just scared, or they may be scared to go there, or it could be Vince's. Vince says the leading babyface of the company ought to be a man, and that's all he wanted to pursue about it. Who knows what the deal is on that? And basically what you got is you got a timeline, especially right now. They can still do it. Danica Patrick has 1 or 2 years to produce, and then the NASCAR fans are going to start downplaying her more and more as time goes on until she wins, or they let her win, one of the two. And you got everything's there. It's the perfect storm. They just got to do it. And if Vince has to talk to his PR team, and get the word out and say, this is the direction we're going with the company, we're going to have Nattie versus Charlotte be our whole company face. We're putting all of our eggs in one basket. We're going to let these girls represent our company, which is the way it should be represented. They're two wrestling families. Everybody knows in the wrestling business that sometimes the families only trust themselves to protect the business. Well, here's a prime example. Here's two girls who brought into the business the right way. You know, you pay your dues. You don't suck up. You don't kiss up to make it to the top. You show up and do your thing. Not in and not out. That's how you get over it. And that's how you get the promotion over. It's about getting the promotion over to begin with. And those girls know it. Her dad, I believe I heard her dad say that him and Harley Race, we're going to back up. Charlotte's dad, Ric Flair, say that him and Harley Race spent more time making the other guy look good than almost 80% of the people in the business. You know, Dory Funk Jr. along with that, Terry Funk too. That's just the way the nature of the beast is played. I mean, the game's played that way. It's not about you, it's about the match. I mean, that's the bottom line. And nowadays, with all these millennials coming into business, it's more about them. You know, a lot of people want to get signed to the WWE so they can turn around when they leave and use that as a way of self-promoting themselves to get themselves over, so they can turn around and go make money in the indies. Which I don't blame them. Hey, that's the way the business is. You got to protect yourself. So I completely understand. But everything is there. Nattie versus Charlotte could literally save the business. And they're just not, I don't know, I just don't get it. I don't know what their thinking is. Like I say, you know, a lot of it is that they just, it's like knowing the answer to the problem, but running from the answer. And it's, you know, signing all these new guys, you know, the solution is there. Everything's there for them to do it. You don't have to go out and spend a ton of money signing new guys and sending your scouts everywhere to find new people. And now I understand keeping the talent fresh is good. I completely relate on that. But when you got the solution to the problem sitting in your own damn locker room and then running from the problem is absolutely the stupidest thing I ever heard. I used to make side jokes. I was like, you know how come WWE struggles? It's because Stephanie went to Boston College instead of Yale or Harvard, and she didn't get to get in the whole little skull and bones thing. Because she was a member of the skull and bones thing. You know, maybe her mom may have won the election. But see, she had no way in. The Bilderberg group don't even acknowledge the WWE, I don't think. So, which is a whole completely different mess. But that will show you where the WWE sits as far as the corporate food chain. You have Google, you have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have Yahoo. You have the NFL, then the UFC, then you probably have the WWE. That's probably the corporate food chain. Unless Vince and the WWE corporations donate a lot of money to one of the political candidates and they're trying to, let's put it this way, WWE doesn't have a lobbyist. So there's so many twists and turns on as far as that, you know, and I'm a conspiracy theorist. Hell, I love it. Some of this, I got bored of the wrestling business there for a while and started looking up stuff with the JFK and the, you know, the Hart deal and the CERN deal. I mean, that's just the kind of guy I am. So, because it's a never-ending story, and there's always twists to that story. So, on the Nattie versus Charlotte deal, everything's there. Everything is absolutely there. The solution to the problem is there. Maybe they'll run 4.0s and 4.5s if they do Canada versus America. Now, I'm not saying hint that the screw job's coming, because one of the funniest things I ever heard or ever seen was the Undertaker versus Lesnar deal. Everybody said Taker got screwed. No, Taker didn't get screwed. He got beat right smack in the middle of the ring. He was knocked out on his feet. He absolutely had to go under that night, and Mark Callis will be the first one to tell you that he had to go under, because that's how you pass the torch in this business. And I hope he's doing, recovering from cancer, and he's having a good recovery. But he, who was brought in by Don Jardine, which is one of the biggest badasses to ever come into this business, knows that you got to pass the torch. Sort of like Nattie versus Charlotte. It comes back to the wrestling family thing again, which is sometimes the only way this thing works. Because early on in my career, I got brought in by a family. So I heard the stories about whenever Jay Youngblood, God rest his soul, I heard some stories from some other friends of the Youngbloods of how they had to deal with that. So wrestling families take stuff to a whole completely different level. I used to tell people all the time, if you get broke in by, a lifetime job guy, your whole aspect on the business is way different than being brought in by a family. That's their whole livelihood is based upon the wrestling business. So, with that being said, that is the biggest point I can drive home. If WWE wants to protect their business, Nattie and Charlotte should get the helm. Let them do their thing. Stretch it out for a couple years. Run that angle into the ground until you got where you have it, where you're everywhere you show up, it's a sellout. Run it some in some house shows, even though I think they only do 300 house shows per year now compared to what it was. God knows what they were running back in the day, but I've heard stories like up to 1,200 or 700. I believe it was 700, but it's just everything's there. If they want to do it, it could be the fact is maybe they're like an alcoholic in denial, and they don't know what to do with it. They know they have a disease, but they're not willing to do anything about it. And it could mean their PR people working a little bit harder to make sure these girls get over. I follow Nattie on Twitter. She's a self-promotion machine herself. So, she takes pictures with her cats and it gets over. So, enough being said. She knows how to get herself over. Charlotte knows how to get herself over. So, let's get it on for a long time and do good business and draw big money. Let's do it. I just don't. It's mind-boggling what they're thinking in the booking committee. The whole world is ready for that. It's there. It's there. I've said it's the perfect storm. God knows how many times today, but everything's there. The solution to the WWE's problem is sitting in their own locker room. And if that's a TV guy, if one of the TV guys has a lot of say-so in the booking committee, then they need to put him in his place, and they need to get some real wrestling people back in there on that booking committee. They need to have it weighted more towards the wrestling side instead of the TV side. So, and then you got everything there, and then like I say, it goes back to the possible Montreal screw job sort of setup thing again. They could run that. There's no telling where they could go with it. So thank you for tuning in today, and I'm out.